Good afternoon, my name is Olga Tamanova, and I'm happy to see everybody joining us in Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform. It's been 10 years of the war, and today is day 600 of the full-scale invasion of our homeland by Russian aggressor. And traditionally, I want to thank the representatives of all the mass media who tell the world the truth about a heroic resistance. Now we will be talking about the Harvesting Campaign 2023, about the experts of Ukrainian agricultural produce. Joining us online is Dmytro Solomchuk, People's Deputy and a member of Parliamentary Council or Parliamentary Committee on Land and Agrarian Policy. Good afternoon, Mr. Dmytro. Good afternoon. So this year's harvest, how much was harvested by now? For the time being, we were able to harvest about 54 tons of all types of crops, and there are at least 20 more million tons in the fields. Most of all, it's corn, because we have just started harvesting it, and the harvesting campaign will be on for another 2 months, because all across Ukraine it's raining now, so this process is about to be a little bit longer. The yield this year is a little bit more than it was forecasted. In Kherson and Mykolaiv regions, the agrarians demand a lot of land by themselves. They fulfilled the spring sowing campaign, then the weather conditions were quite favorable, and the harvest is pretty good compared to the previous year. It will be more, and given the war, I would say it's quite a high level. Mr. Dmytro, talking about the experts, let's talk about Agrarian Corridor. Is it operating? Because we see there were statements made by different experts that some minor amounts of produce can be shipped, it reaches the buyer. So what is the situation over there? To what extent this process covers our export needs? Well, the Ukrainian Corridor within our 12-mile zone, it operates in a little bit complicated manner, but thanks to our security and defense forces, it does operate. And starting from the middle of September, more than 25 ships arrived at the port to be loaded, using which we were able to supply about 1 million tons. Unfortunately, it's still a low amount, but it's only the beginning of Ukrainian Corridor that operates without any agreements with the countries which keep shelling us. Because we see that the agreements that were entered into between United Nations and Russia unfortunately do not work. Russia does everything to destroy our agricultural sector. The situation is extremely difficult in terms of sale of products, because the logistics is either non-existent or very costly. This is why the agrarians have to set very low prices for their produce, specifically in Zaporizhia, Sumy, Kherson, Mykolaiv, Kharkiv regions, all the deoccupied territories. It's very difficult to export the products from there. The prices are just so low that even after the sale of products by the agrarians, the profits don't cover the expenses. Well, Mr. Dmytro, talking about the riverways, were we able to intensify the export through riverways? Unfortunately, we were not able to expand our export through Danube due to shellings. It's still there, it's in place, however, at a little bit lower level than it used to be during the period when there were no shellings and missile strikes on the ports with destruction of port infrastructure. Well, we wait for the new air defense systems. They were promised to us. They should be coming to ensure the security of the region, and after that we will be able to expand the export capabilities through river waterways. Mr. Dmytro, we know that within the last couple of months the occupier inflicts more strikes on Odessa specifically, and it's no secret to anybody that they try to target our grain silos there. So by the time being, do we understand the amount of losses inflicted by the aggressor? Well, if we calculate all the losses, I don't even know how to do it. Probably there are no enough digits in the calculator. I think it's at least 30-40 billion dollars. Those are the very rough figures, but they are very difficult to calculate given the mining of hundreds of thousands of hectares of land and destroyed material and storage facilities, the destroyed harvest that was supposed to be harvested and exported, so under-received profits, destruction of environment, the lands. Hundreds of thousands of hectares will require very long environmental renewal. So again, it's very difficult to calculate. Again, it will depend on the way those lands will be renewed. Everything will be reconstructed, and only after the thorough calculations we will be able to produce the final amount. But in my humble opinion, it's at least 30-40 billion dollars. Well, we understand that export of our agricultural product doesn't happen in a way that we would like. Another challenge for our agrarians will be the storage of the products they've harvested. So are we ready for that? And if so, to what extent? Well, in a couple of weeks, if export is not arranged properly, we will run out of storage facilities, again depending on the regions. In some regions there are full elevators. We understand that they will be loaded within the 2 to 3 weeks, but there are some storages where infrastructure is destroyed and there is no really place to store. Now through the Harvest of Victory campaign we supply the agricultural manufacturers with the sleeves to store their produce, but again it will all depend on the export conditions within the next couple of weeks. Then it will depend on the weather, what will be the harvested by the combiners, then how the dryers for the corn will operate. So there are a lot of factors. Thank you. We have questions on the floor. Good afternoon, Anastasia Kravchenko, Ukrinform. I will have a couple of questions. First is regarding the autumn sowing campaign. You say that the prices for Ukrainian agricultural products are at low level and we see very significant problems with the export on that background. So how will this situation influence the winter sowing campaign? We know it has started already. Should we expect the fall of the sowing or the decrease of the sowing area this year? What are the intentions of the agrarians? Yes, the agrarians are currently lacking financial resources, so they sell less. This figure will be 20 to 30% less than last year. It will influence the growth of wheat, the bread, basically. Last week I submitted the proposal to the Prime Minister on how to make the way out of this situation, because the loans are good for agricultural sector, but unfortunately the agricultural sector is overlanded, so to say. We have to take some urgent drastic decisions, to adopt some non-standard solutions. We have to create like special fund the grain of Ukraine, to make a bond issue, to procure the wheat from the agrarians at some fixed price in amount of 10 million tons, to store it at certified private elevators so that we don't eat something, God forbid, so that that wheat can re-export that grain further on as the state, so that the agrarians as the logistics is arranged, they can buy the wheat back, only paying for storage of those agricultural products. Thus they could get more financial resources to pay for the land lots, I mean for the rent of the land lots, because in many regions they cannot cover even those expenses, so they can get profit to maintain their material, to procure fertilizers and sowing material for the next season. And I'm having another question about the exports to the European Union. We know all this situation when there was a ban of Ukrainian imports, I mean the ban of some types of agricultural products were banned to be imported to 5 of our neighbors. So is the export already in place under these special conditions? Here we started shipping just at least a little bit of our agricultural products to those countries, or the negotiations are still underway? The export is still going on. I mean, there are transit shipments through the territory of our neighbors, not in the amounts that was existing before, because it takes a lot of time to export it through the border if we export it through motorways. Also, the railway cars are being inspected very thoroughly, and now the amount of export is at least twice as small as it could be. And so far it's not safe to say that there are any shipments going on to those countries. Mr. Dmytro, talking about the cost of agricultural products this year, how will all those processes influence the global prices, and what are expectations with regard to our internal market? Well, we already observed that recently in the global markets the price of wheat is growing. In the same way the price will grow for soy and ripe, because the world needs a lot of soy for the cattle, but the West doesn't grow it in the necessary amount. We are leaders in this area, and also we expect the price of the sunflower seed oil to grow, which will mean the growth of price of the sunflower seeds. This year there will be less olive oil in the market because the harvest of olives this year is not so good, and it will need to be replaced with something. And in our market the prices are affordable for Ukrainians. They are pretty low for buckwheat and wheat. However, the price of bread depends more on the energy carriers, and depending the way the bakeries will operate in the winter, if they work on generators, the price will grow. Also, the vegetable prices have fallen significantly, but the forecast for the vegetable prices for the next spring, even regardless of the fact that 15 vegetable silos were built in Ukraine this year, I think in April or May we will be seeing the price for the vegetables grow until there will be the new harvest coming to the market. Thank you very much for joining our broadcast. Thank you for finding time. Dear colleagues, I'm reminding you joining us was Dmytro Solomchuk, the People's Deputy and the Member of Parliamentary Committee on Agrarian and Land Policy. And our next briefing will be at 1400. We will be talking about the parliamentary elections in Poland. We will be talking about the results and how those results influence our country. So stay tuned. Let's continue working for our victory. Glory to Ukraine.